Claudio has been the most patient person working on this site in dealing with all my, could you add this, could you change that, take a look at this, at like midnight, when I'm actually home from work. So I've been using this to plan my track days, and this has been very helpful. Because it eliminates a lot of the things that I can't remember to do. I can't remember to do squat, and I end up getting to the track day with missing keys, unable to unlock things. I went to the track without my suit. I had to borrow the worst suit I've ever received in my life from RideSmart that had holes in it that I didn't feel safe in. So a lot of this has been helping keep me safe from hurting myself and actually being able to participate in track days. It's really grown a lot. Claudio made this available to all of us kind of on a preview mode. So you go in, there's a lot of learning to using it because this site depends on how you work and what you need out of it. One thing I really appreciate that Claudio has put into this is making it a flexible tool that can fit whoever you are. So anyway, I keep coming back to this, and almost every 2 weeks he has something new. Hey, check this out, and I go in and take a look at it, and oh, look, I can do all these new things. So I've had a chance to run through a lot of those pieces, and I'm gonna give you a little preview on what I've had so far. So this is my top 5 list. I started doing like a flow chart of what I wanted to share with you guys this weekend. And after about an hour in, I realized it was about a 20-hour long talk. So I've really cut down a lot of the main things I'm using right now. So I'm gonna go over these pretty quick. I'm starting with number 5 here because Claudio did a lot of work over the weekend, and I actually spent time because it was raining outside getting my stuff ready for the rest of the year. So I did a lot of playing with checklists, and the checklists are great because I've created multiple different ones here. There's the ones that Claudio has built in, track day prep. It's a great starter. It has all the basic things you should show up at a track day with, like bring your motorcycle, bring a suit, bring a helmet. And yes, these are basic things, but you forget to do them when you're trying to put them in the truck at 4:30 in the morning on Saturday morning to go to RideSmart. So that's a great place to start, is using the canned checklist. Now start making it your own, and you can take a look at these checklists. You can see what I've created here. The checklist varies based on the track day I'm going to. One of them I have here, I call it the away mission. It's the first day. That's anytime I'm doing an overnight for a track day. Most track days, I'm going to the track, I'm coming back the same day. There's no hotel reservations, there's no sleeping at a buddy's house. There's none of that to have to deal with. So I have a separate checklist for those. I have ones where I go away overnight. It's a 2-day track day. The things you do on the first day, you don't do on the second day because you already have all the stuff set up. So this helps keep it focused so you're not redoing anything. So you choose the track list for your track day. The other one I have is sometimes I call them off-world missions because that means I get on an airplane and go somewhere and do a track day. No truck to load, no trailer to load, no bike to gas up. I need to get my boarding pass. I need to get my gear in a bag. I need to get it checked in on the airline. Completely different checklist, because if you show up for an off-world track day without your stuff, you're not riding, or you're gonna have a really hard time making the ride. So I have those set up as well. The one I haven't added here, this is what we were just talking about, is mini bikes. Because we've been going back and forth about the mini bikes ever since I heard about this. If I'm getting a 2-stroke bike, guess what? I'm getting a premix jug for gas and oil premix.
Yeah.
Spark plugs. Yeah, so I have a separate checklist for all those different things I might be doing. So that's why I have so many different checklists, and that's what I love about it. I don't have to build it from scratch every time. I pull up the closest one, maybe I add 1 or 2 things, maybe I remove 1 or 2 things from the checklist, and I'm ready to start using it and getting ready for my track day. So, as I just mentioned, the purpose is for using the checklist. Hopefully you can see it okay up there on the screenshot. Here's an example of one I have for just a local track day. It's like I'm gonna get up in the morning, load my stuff up, go to the track and ride, and then I'm coming home that night. What I like about the checklists is that, bam, it's on my phone. I'm taking my phone with me. I don't need a computer. I don't have to print them out on paper. I pull it up on my phone as I'm getting ready in the morning. Did I put my helmet in the truck? Check it off on the phone. And you look through the checklist until you've checked all the boxes. I'm good to go. It's time to put the keys in the ignition and roll out and get on the highway. So I have the different checklists there. The other thing I've done with the checklists, this was Claudio's suggestion. I really like it. You will see up here I have the truck. Everything that needs to be in the truck. It's the last thing I get in. I get in the truck to drive away. I check that I have the bike keys. I have the trailer keys to unlock the trailer. Otherwise, I have done that, locked my bike in my trailer and got to the track and had to ask people in the pit, do you have a hacksaw so I can cut the hasp off my trailer? And guess what? Nobody at the track day has a hacksaw, because what the hell do you fix on a bike with a hacksaw? It's just not an appropriate tool. Eventually I found somebody with a Home Depot toolkit and a tool they've never used, the hacksaw. So I managed to get my bike out. So I have things that are in the truck. It's the last thing I'm getting in. Life support, that's my food. That's my first aid kit. That's like salt tablets to keep me alive, because I keep that in the truck because I'm probably going to be eating on the way to the track. The trailer's the next thing that's in there. Do I have my folding chair? Do I have my gas jugs? Do I have the ramp to get the bike in and out? Do I have all my gear? My suit, everything's back there. Do I have my trailer valet? It's actually the wheel you attach to the trailer so you can roll the trailer around. And then do I also have my track box? And this is what Claudio was talking about, because I have a track box. It is a milk crate that has my various items in the milk crate. So when I'm getting ready for the track day, I got the milk crate packed up. I start checking off those items. These are good to go. Then the morning I roll out, I only care about what's at the top of the list. I put it at the top of the list, so when I open my phone, I'm looking at the top of the list and I don't have to scroll around to find things. I know I only have the 2 items left there to get packed and I'm ready to go. So I do these the night before. I'm packing my food. I'm packing my track box. I'm getting the GoPro ready, the battery's charged and everything. Those are all in separate containers that I need to put in the truck, and I'm going to check them off on the truck the morning. So it makes it more efficient. I'm not missing anything, and it's like Russian nesting dolls. You put one inside the other and you're good to go. So I really love that feature, and based on whatever my track is, if it's a 2-stroke mini bike day, I know what I need to have ready to go. So that's how I've been using the track list, the checklist so far. The other thing I really like about the site that I've been using since Claudio released this, like around the January time frame, is in January there's no track days. So I'm looking for track days to start signing up for. So I come in here for the track days and I started creating the list. You'll see this is my example for Hallett. I'll be going there next weekend, as a matter of fact. So on this particular track day, I get them set up, and as you start to add the details about the track day, it will put how much, what are your expenses? Are you confirmed for the track day? Because I've had this problem recently. I didn't sign up for a track day in time. Guess what? I went to the track day site to sign up 2 weeks before the event, and it said full. Oops. So when I'm looking through my list of track days for the next 2 months, I know which ones I need to sign up for. Hallett, for example, they don't open registration until 30 days before the event. So in January, I had to wait. So one of the things Claudio has here is the present status. Is it confirmed? Is it pending? Or are you not going? Maybe you backed out at the last minute. So you can look at your list and go, which ones are still pending that I need to sign up for? I can look at the list, look at the date, and get it done. So it's already on the list. I can avoid some of the surprises on a track day as long as I'm forecasting how much it's going to cost. I like the fact when you set up the track day, how much does it cost to get on the track? How much are you going to spend on fuel? If I'm doing an off-world track day, how much is that plane ticket costing? I love to use airline miles to get that cost down because that's the big one on those days. So I can avoid some of those financial surprises. The other thing that's been added here is some of the miscellaneous categories. You don't see it on here because I haven't gone to this track day yet. But one of the items is, after you do the track day, how much did you really spend on it? Were there unanticipated costs, because you have your planned cost and the actual cost? Again, I haven't done this one yet, so we'll see what it adds up to. The thing I really like about this is I crash way more than I should. And you don't tend to think about that cost because you get back from the track day and it takes 2 weeks to start getting parts, 2 more weeks before you realize you missed something. And I come back and I track these on the track day. So when I crashed at Thunder Hill in November, I had a cost like this.
Where's Thunder Hill at?
It's in California in Willows. It's up by
Holy shit.
Sacramento.
You know what? My mom used to work at the airport in Willows.
Oh,
My
really?
family
It's
owns
right
a-
there by the freeway.
I know, I
just
was
on
there the
way
first
out.
opening weekend. That's why I was like, what did you say? Thunder Hill?
Yeah.
And I used to live in, that's Butte County.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I went there right
That's
after they
freaking
had
nuts.
the
I grew up on that
campfire,
track
and
when
it
it
was
was
just
first being built.
yeah.
That's funny.
And that track has grown. First time I rode it was in 1995. It's like, wow, it's like 3 times as big now. There's one configuration on the track that's 5 miles long. They only do it like once a year, but one of these days I'm going to get out there and I'm going to ride that 5 mile long
That's
track.
awesome.
Do you rent a bike when you fly places?
Yeah, so that's one of the expenses that goes in here. Because when I was first doing this, I'm like, hey Claudio, sometimes I have to rent a bike. Can you add one? And he did it. He kept adding these categories for me. I just loved it. He went and added the tracks, because it's a pretty extensive list. Your track day, choose what track you're going to. Okay, it's in there, you choose it. You will notice for MSRH, both directions, clockwise, counterclockwise. He entered it 2 different ways.
Right.
So when you're planning your track day, oh, it's counterclockwise. I have problems counterclockwise on different corners than I do when you run it the opposite direction. So it helps to know which track and which direction you're riding in. So anyway, back to the costs here. The other thing is when you crash, especially when you crash a rented motorcycle, put in the actual costs. Then when you look at what you did last year, oh, I went to Thunder Hill and it didn't cost $420. It cost $1,500 for the same track day. So you can start to learn some of your lessons, financial lessons. I should have got bike insurance when I rented that bike. So it's really nice to be able to track the costs, because it also reinforces every time I have a big unplanned expense like that, that's money I could have spent on other track days. And it tends to reinforce, okay, don't be totally crazy out here. It's a hell of a lot of fun. Restrain yourself a little bit and pay attention, and you'll get to do more track days. So that's a good reinforcement for good riding technique and not just getting totally crazy and just running out there like a dog. Oh, it's so fun, crash. So anyway, I really like being able to track the costs on the events, and you'll see this year over year, Ride Smart's raised their prices a little bit. When you start keeping track of how much you're spending, you'll notice that and be able to forecast better for next year. What are you thinking about doing next year? Something bigger? Or are you going to do mini bikes where it's $75 all day long and the tires will last the entire season? Because you're tracking things like, did I have to replace the tires before I went and did this day? So I love the ability to track the costs on the track days. The other thing we talk about all the time here is planning the event. What are you going to work on? So one of the things I like about this is, again, Claudio has made it flexible. He's not really refining you into doing it Claudio's way. He gives you the tools to do it the way you want to. Because a new rider is going to come in and they're not going to analyze every corner and what's my foot position in a bus stop. They may have more modest goals. They're not going to track every session they're riding out there, but they're probably going to have an overview at the end of the day how they felt about things. Which leads into the first topic here is bike development versus rider skills. When you're first doing a track day, you're not out tuning your suspension. You're not timing your cams. You're not degreeing your cams. You're not doing engine work. You're learning to ride a motorcycle without sitting bolt upright looking at the speedometer all the time. You're going to be focused on rider skills. Your plans in your development as you get out there are going to be less on skills, and now you're going to start learning what do you need to do to tune the bike to make the bike work better for you. You have to get to that point first before you can feel and understand what the bike needs to do. And then at that point, you need to start doing something about the bike because it's not working right, and you're going to crash because you haven't set up your suspension right. Tony has talked about this where he kept doing the same thing, crashing the bike multiple times because the shock was bottoming out going around corners because he was riding so fast. Rider development is great, especially if you can detect that's what's wrong. But in a certain point in your development, your goal is going to be, I need to get my shock set up for this particular corner on the track. Claudio's tool lets you put that in on your riding plans. Am I going to work on getting the bike tuned so it's working better? Or am I going to work on me? Or am I going to work on both? So you have the ability when you're setting up your goals and your plans. Here's the overview. This is the big picture of what I'm going to work on here. These are the individual items. And Claudia and I talked about this a lot when I was adding my goals because I really got carried away initially. It's in turn 6, I'm going to work on turning the bike later. On turn 8, I'm going to carry more speed down the straight, and I had a whole bunch of goals to work on. It's too much when you're at the track. He said this to me, tone it down, pick a few things and focus on that on your track day and don't get carried away. If you want to have 10 goals on a day, this site can do it. Yeah. It's not going to be a problem for you. But it's something to think about, and I like the flexibility that it's able to put that in there. So when you go to your plans there, you have an overview of what you're going to look at. You can bring it up on your phone too. What are my goals for right now? I can take a look before I go out on the bike and not get caught on a whole lot of detail. I can just look at what am I trying to accomplish with the overview, and then how am I trying to accomplish that with my goals. So that's been very helpful to have there. You can also embed links in that. So if you need a demo for your overview, I need to carry more corner speed. You have a YouTube video of that track in that corner. Boom, you can post it in there. You get to the track and you want to take a look at it, click on the link on your phone. It'll play it on YouTube. This is what I'm trying to accomplish in that corner, and you can watch it. Or you can watch yourself. So I really like the ability to put that kind of stuff in there. The other thing I jumped over item B up there. There's 2 different ways to rate how you're doing on something. How do you feel about it? What are the subjective feeling? Do I feel okay? Am I tense? You can't put numbers behind those versus your lap times. How much speed did I carry down the straight? I have a data logger. I can put that data in. I can track every session. What was the maximum speed I reached on the straight? And I'll talk about that a little bit further. But there's 2 ways to approach this. You don't have to be numbers. You don't have to have numbers if you don't have them. Have a plan. Figure out how you're going to rate that. Another item with subjective is have someone else ride with you. Have them rate you. How did you appear to do? Again, they can't give you a lap time, but they can say you looked more comfortable, or you looked stressed out. You really were looking down too much. You weren't looking further ahead. You can get that feedback, but you can track it in here. So you can come back to that track in the future, go, how did I feel on that day? What did someone else say about it? And I think Claudia is working toward integrating more of a social aspect to the site where other people can come in. If you give them access to this, they can give you that feedback and post it up for you. Especially if they see something on their video, they could share it with you.
Yeah, I mean, the thing on the subjective part of it speaks volume to me because I'm never going to forget last year, October at MSRH, part of my track day plan was specifically to work on my upper body position because I had received this feedback that I was not like moving, off the bike enough and like lowering my head into the corners enough. I mean, I felt like I was doing it, but other people would say, no, you can go more. So I went out one day, it's like, okay, this is my goal. This is the one thing I'm going to be working on today, right? And I was working on it. I would come out of the track and write down how it felt, where I need to go more. And then at the end of the day, I wrote down, and I have that scanned in my notes, this was the most comfortable I've ever felt on my bike. That's how I felt at the end of the day. It's like, I'm feeling in control of the bike. I'm feeling like I'm going where I'm supposed to with my body, and this is how I feel. At the end of the day, one of my buddies there, who is a lot faster than me, a lot more experienced, he came to me and he said, man, night and day difference. You were riding awesome today. All those things on your upper body position, that's all fixed. He didn't know I was working on that. But because I wrote it down, it's subjective, but I wrote it down. It's like, that's how I felt. And you cross-check that with somebody who knows more than you and tells you, yes, that's what it looked like from the outside. Yes, that's progress. You cannot quantify that, but that's progress.
Yeah, the most important thing there is you may not be able to quantify I was going 35 miles an hour, but most people can tell I felt better or I felt worse. And if you can track, I was working on this, it felt worse. You need to work on something else or pick a new goal to correct that. But you can always tell, it's like driving your car with the speedometer. You can go faster or you can go slower. Figure out what you need to do either one of those. So I really like that aspect because it can address both the way it's set up. Because it's really free text there. You can put that information and come back to it.
Right.
So what I did skip over there was Claudio breaks it down. You can put how many sessions you rode on the track. You can put in, I skipped session 3. Could be because you were fixing something. Could be you just missed the call. Could be you made the wise choice to sit it out for a session for some reason. So you can mark which ones you did and didn't do. And the other way he has the sessions laid out, if you have video from different sessions, you can go post the link to the video in that session. So if you want to watch the video for that session, there it is. There's a place to put it where you can discover it and find it again. So anyway, one of the latest features that's come out is the debrief. So after you're done with your track day, that's when you're going to go back and look at what were the goals for the day. We'll have a summary view here so you can just take a look at the big picture on the day. If you want to look at the granularity on the sessions, you can. But then you have individual notes at the end. That's where I'm thinking a newer track day person that's not tracking what did I do in every session. What did my data logger have to say? What were my lap times in every session? They may just use the notes there to just take what went well, things that didn't go well, and then they can take those to a right smart coach and say, this is what I'm taking away from the track day. What feedback do you have from this? So again, it gives you that flexibility. How much detail do you want? How much detail do you have to spend during the week to go back and review all this stuff? I mean, there are nights I'm up till 2 a.m. looking at every video and my data logger and everything else, and I'm just getting carried away. But not everybody's like that. So I really like that aspect of it, that it's very, very tailorable for whatever your ride level is. Some guys just want to go out and ride around. That's fine too. Just depends on what your goals are.
Right.
So,
I have
next.
a question or
Sure.
maybe a suggestion that would be cool. I love taking data about everything that I do. One would be cool if you listed each rider's skill, like upper body, braking, maybe cornering, lean left, right, and maybe have like a number you could put from 1 to 10 what you rated yourself on that day. So each
Oh, that's a good
has
point.
score. Or if it had a picture of the track, that'd be funny. I don't know, it'd be funny. Or like the same thing with each corner, like a happy face or a frowny face on each part of the track, and then that way you could put like, yeah, this is the, or if you're showing your coach, this is, I got a frowny face here every time.
I like it.
Yeah.
That might be kind
Yeah.
of cool. Just, I would want to know if I'm studying a track where I do good and where I do bad, and I think that'd be.
I like it, and I totally relate to that because, like, on my offline notes, whenever, like, we go out to the track and then there's a photographer there taking photos all day. A couple of days later, he publishes that. I usually go into his website and I look for not only my photos but the ones from other riders on the same corner
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
to see the difference.
Yeah.
Right, because then, okay, this is me. Oh, this is that badass coach. Look at that. That's what I should be looking like. Or, you know,
Yeah, it's really
body
cool.
position, it changes, but I mean, it shouldn't be like that big delta. It's like, you know, if it's a
Like,
left turn
overlay
corner,
him and
yes.
yourself, that'd be pretty
Yeah,
cool.
I do that. Right, I do that kind of stuff. So good to know that's
Yeah.
I'm not the only one thinking about that kind of stuff. Good.
Yeah, I love this, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, it's nice to see the progression over time. I look at the
Right.
various bike photos that I have and haven't purchased, and yeah, you definitely see it. Claudia had the picture of me up before. That was like my 5th track day.
Right.
And you can see on my body, I'm going, dude, your head, you're like a prairie dog sticking up there. Jeez.
Yeah.
But, you know, 5 track days, and so it worked. When you're putting in the information on the debrief, this is what I wanted to point out some of the differences. I have an AIM data logger. This is some of the data I have. I have every section, every session, every track lap. So if I want to look at this, what lap I'm on, the first one never counts because you don't pass start finish. It's a throwaway. You can see I don't have a 17-second lap time yet. But you can see what my lap times are after that. You can see the first lap doesn't register. My second lap, I'm still kind of on my out lap, warming up tires. I'm in the 2:22 second range. Third lap, I just shaved off most of that time. I'm down to 2:02. I'm starting to warm up at that point. Fourth lap in, I dropped 3 more seconds off the lap time. Another lap in, I drop another second off. And then I'm getting near the end of the session, and you can see I'm starting to get in what I call my normal time at MSRH. I can't remember what, oh, I'm sorry, this isn't MSRH, is it? Yes, it is. I'm on the Daytona.
Yeah.
Because I also have my go-kart track on the Supermoto on a different tab. It's just not displaying the data. I'm like, really, RMZ, it took 2? No, that's not right. But the nice thing about the data logger is I slap it on the bike, I turn it on, it's GPS, it knows when I pass start finish, because otherwise I use the one on the bike, you have to hit the horn button to time the lap. Guess what, when I go past start finish, my wrist is in this position.
Yeah.
My thumb, if I remember to press the button to time the lap, that's great. If I can actually press the button without screwing up my grip, doesn't happen. So that's why I went with the GPS lap timer. But now, when I look at my track lap, here's the start of the lap, here's my speed, here's my minimum speed. It automatically tells me this info. What was the minimum speed on that lap? What was the lap time? I can get that information. It's information overload until you get used to it and then know what you're looking at. For this example though, what I wanted to point out is here's my maximum speed. That's on the back straight, and looks like I got 117.9 on the bike, which is slower than Claudio, but the key thing is when I go to the BTT site, I can take out, I can filter out all that data and just put what was my personal best. I can look at all those sessions and the data logger will tell me where my best lap was. I can put it in. What was my average speed? That's really hard for you all to get without a data logger. What was your average speed? Good luck. I can get it from the data logger. I can enter it in there. My top speed, I can also get that from the data logger. So I can enter my stats for that particular day there. So when I'm looking at the summary, I can look at what bike I rode. I know something about how I had it set up. Which tires were I running, what was the temperature on the day. I didn't enter the weather conditions yet, because this was a little further back before I was actually tracking that
You
data.
can probably still look it up.
So,
They
oh
keep
yeah,
really
that's a good
accurate.
point. Yeah, yeah,
You can go back like 20 years.
yeah, because if I recall, this was a particularly cold day. Most of the days we've been at the
It
track
was,
have
yeah.
been. I haven't been sweating at all this year. It's either been too cold or the day was canceled outright. But one of the things I like about the stats here is that one thing I picked up looking at the data logger that's helped my development, or at least get my lap time down, because it's my lap time here I'm looking at, is on that back straight, the higher that speed is, the lower my lap is, more than anywhere else on the track. If I can carry 2 miles an hour more off the launch into those corners, it does not equate to as low a lap time as that top speed on the back straight. I was working on that back straight and trying to brake later at the end of it and carry more speed through that, because the more time I spend at that speed, the bigger effect it has on my lap. The Indian Express was out there and he kept saying, "You're coasting. Why aren't you braking hard for a shorter period of time? Because you're coasting around." And he was right. It was 4 seconds a lap. Because when I was coming out of the corner, he's like, get on the gas and go. At the end of the straight, slow it down. Don't coast down. slow it down. And those kind of stats there that I was able to get from the data logger really helped a lot. Again, I have to have both to do what I'm working on.
Sure.
But other people, guess what? The other thing about what Claudio has on the debrief is you're not collecting the data logger data. That's why I have the data logger. I pull that up and I do that sort of analysis.
Right.
But the last thing I wanted to talk about, this feeds back into the other slide here, is one of the things I get from y'all is feedback and tips. Because we get to actually talk with each other. It's not just reading a forum and reacting to what's written. No, I can actually interact with you and say, hey, I experienced this on the track. What's your experience? Kind of with the checklist and the feedback from Claudio. Hey, this is what my approach is, and we bounce things off each other. And it really speeds up the process. So we get a lot of tips that we can share with each other, and I just highlighted some of the ones that have really helped me out from this. Number one was posting the videos and how to actually go to a time index on the video. You don't have to watch the whole video, because most of these track lap sessions, 15 to 20 minutes long. That's a long time sitting in front of the TV. If you're gonna watch all the videos from a track day, guess what? You just spent an entire track day on your couch, and it's 2 a.m. at that point. But if you just want to see what you did in 2 corners, you can put the video up and post a link to it, and then put that link back in your notes for your track day debrief. So when you want to go back to a specific item, you can watch that 30 seconds worth and get what you needed out of it. So I really like that. The other thing I got a tip, I think was either Claudio or Jason, when you're shooting videos, often you have 2 cameras on the bike, maybe.
Oh,
you have
yeah,
one on the front, you have one on the back, maybe you have one on the helmet. Guess what? If you're trying to post the videos for which session on the track day, you got to know which session it's from. How do you do that? Because they all look alike. Bike video footage, unless you can see the sun and the position in the sky, how do you know? And I think it was actually you.
Yeah.
Finger gesture to the camera. This is session 3. Behind the back camera. This is session 3. You can put them all together and keep track of which video goes with what. Because guess what? The clock on the cameras lie. They're never right. They're always telling you it's the wrong day or the wrong time. I've had sessions show up going backwards in time, but you can see the sun moving across the sky in the illumination. Really, that's 9 o'clock in the morning because it looks like 6 p.m. at night based on the lighting. So again, just being able to tag the videos at the start, what session am I in, helped out tremendously with video management, because that becomes overload at some point. The last thing I wanted to talk about was timing your laps. This goes back to the last slide. When you're doing the debrief, okay, you don't have a $700 data logger that's mounted on every bike with a mount for each and every one. There's other approaches. So some of these approaches are, if you're at the track with somebody else, you go with a family member or something, everybody's got a stopwatch on their cell phone. Just go out there, time when you go past start finish, and time the laps. That's the good old fashioned, lanyard around the neck, time the laps. Okay, so everybody knows that one. If you use a lap timer or data logger, awesome, don't have to do anything. I have rented ones from RideSmart before that are infrared. They give you Velcro, you stick it on your bike, you turn it on, times your laps. I've never had them work. I go out and do my entire session, you can't see what they're doing until you come in, and then it's too late because they forgot to turn the transponder on the track so that it's not registering the lap timer. Had that happen before, but that is an option. So if you don't want to buy one, it's $20 for the day. You want to find out really early that it is actually working though, so think about that one. The other one is everybody has a camera. Guess what? If you're doing a whole lap on the camera, you have a whole lap on the camera, pick an object off the side of the track, get out your cell phone and just time yourself when you go past start finish. 2 minutes, 22 seconds later, you're going past that point again, you hit the button, there's your lap time. You can go back and put that in the debrief when you have time to collect it. You may want to know which session you're riding in, so hopefully someone marked the video, but you can get that into your debrief. So these are the low budget ways to get the information. The other possibility is have somebody else riding with you. Claudio's video is great. It shows his lap time. So if he's
Right.
faster than you, Have him just follow you roughly. If you keep the same distance, it's the same lap time. So if you can just find videos someone else on the group has posted, you might be able to infer what kind of lap time you're running. It may not get you down to the second level, but it'll tell you if you're running 2.5 minutes into the ECU on the bike, but for some reason it's not registering on mine.
Okay.
The only other thing, what was his name? At the last Ride Smart, dude in the big black pickup truck. Anyway, he had a brand new S1000. He had a brand new data logger, and he had the exact same problem I had.
Really? Okay.
He got it right out of the box, and the problem is, you put it on the bike, you turn it on, it'll detect what track you're on, it will time your laps, but it will not record the laps until you've plugged it into a laptop, brought up the software, and configured it first.
Okay.
I got mine, it showed up UPS right before I went to Coda, so I'm like, oh sweet, it showed up. I threw the box in the truck, went to Coda, put it on the bike, didn't have a mount, I duct taped it to the bike, and I went past start finish, and it's like, oh, there's my time, yes, this is awesome. And then I got off the bike back at the pit, where'd the time go? It didn't record a single lap, but it would show you for 10 seconds after you passed start finish what your time was. So I went home that night, figured out, oh, I have to get the software loaded and everything else and configure it, because there are basic settings that it won't start recording your lap times until your RPM reached 1500 RPM. Guess what? It wasn't plugged into the bike's ECU. It didn't know what the RPM was. It was 0. So it never started recording and logging. It would just give you a real-time display. So I told him that. I'm like, no, it's not broken. This is what's going on. You have to get it on your computer. So the other ones that are on the market, I think it's the Garmin cameras have GPS on it and will record your lap times.
Oh, the GoPro 7, Hero 7 has GPS.
Yeah. So some of those, if you're really not wanting to look into all the data logging, and you're just trying to get lap times and some of that data, it's better to get a product you're going to use also for video and everything else, and it probably would serve you better.
And it surprises me, like the accuracy on this, because you think, oh, on the camera, how accurate it can be. I crossed the times from the camera with the data from my suit, from the transponder at the SEMA races. It's like right there.
Yeah.
With that one, do you have to have it connected to your phone for the GPS to work?
No, not at all.
It'll work by
No,
itself.
you just enable the GPS on the thing and you go.
Because
Yeah.
I think I have a 5, and my 5 has to be connected to my phone
Oh, okay,
to log
yeah.
the other stuff, and it's kind of a pain.
Right.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, this one just...
I probably want to get one that plugs into my bike, though.
Nice.
Yeah, the best thing is just having GPS so you don't have to do anything at all.
Yeah.
Because you're out on the track, you're not going to be thinking of tagging each lap as you go around. You're riding the bike. So,
Yeah. No, my bike has the timer on it, so I'm like, I'm going to forget to do this and look down and all that stuff, you know?
yeah. What I do like about the data logger is because it logs every lap, I can go play back 2 laps. This was my fast lap, this was my slow lap. Where am I making time? I can literally run all 5 laps and see which one comes out ahead. And that's where I really picked up the high top speed on the back straight was almost always the predictor of what the fast lap was. It kind of comes along for the journey. So it's really interesting to see where your corners were good and where they were bad. The other thing you do see is there's a lot of variation in the lap times. Is that you, or was that just you behind somebody slower and it took you a while to get past? Because that can throw off your data. So we really saw this riding with Chris when it was a clear track. There was no traffic. Every single lap I recorded, it was me.
Right.
So they were more consistent. There was less variability, and I got a better picture of what I'm truly capable of. The only downside was I was learning the track. I'd never ridden that direction on that track, and it's an entirely different track the other way. But the lap times are actually pretty similar either direction on that particular track. So it was very interesting to see.
A couple things I thought of, probably wind. You might want to know that, right? That could have an effect.
Oh yeah.
Temperature, humidity, and then temperature of the track might affect your grip going around corners too.
Absolutely,
People know that.
yeah.
For sure.
Just another thing box to throw on there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do have the little infrared camera. I can point the camera at my back tire and measure the temperature. And
Yeah,
I can
that's
also
cool.
see the temperature in the center versus the temperature on the side, because it literally gives you a visual display. Where's the hot spot on the tire? And it's funny because sometimes it's all the way over on the left side, because the track is left-hand oriented, and you
Yeah.
look at the right side and go, wow, that's quite a bit cooler on that. Be careful on that side, because you only get a right-hand corner a few times. So
That'd be really cool, yeah, to know. I work at HVAC and we have some of the infrared cameras. That'd be fun to mount on that tire for the whole thing and look at it.
yeah,
That'd be
exactly.
really cool.
If you could play that back on the video side
Yeah.
by side, the whole lap
Oh,
versus
man.
what temperatures the tire getting at. So
Yeah,
Let's do it.
that's my holy grail. I want a dashboard display that shows the center, the left, and the right of the tire. You go out on your first lap, you can say, oh, it's still too cold, still too cold. Oh, it's up to temperature. Okay, it's on.
Go.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
You get your lean angles over a little bit more. And
Right.
Yeah.
whatever.
I think that's an expensive accessory. But, at
Right.
this
Let's
point,
do it. People will buy it.
Right?
Just gotta make
all
it.
you need is 3 little cameras on the swing arm to keep track of it for you.
That's all you need.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's all.
Right?
So MotoGP's got more data loggers. So.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's how I'm using the track at this point. Escape here. So Claudio has added a few new things to the site here. So you can see my upcoming track days. This is the next one on the books. I'm really looking forward to this one because I've never been to the track. I love going to a track I've never been to before. And this is a 3-day weekend. I've
Nice.
never had a 3-day weekend to ride. I never get to ride anyway, but it was really interesting this year because the site tracks all the track days I've been to. How many of them have been canceled? I have never had a year where I've ridden this infrequently or had the day cut short because of rain. I've hardly ridden at all this year. And when Claudio started talking, oh, I got a mini bike. Well, you got a what? Where do you ride it? That's the next question is where do you ride it? So I started calling around. Oh, there are tracks here. Now I need a mini bike. So I found one in NSR 50. I just somehow need to get it here from New Hampshire, but it's another story. But yeah.
I like that you can see your friends, what days they're going. I guess is that everyone on the side
So
of the
that
site
will
there,
be,
or-
that's a future thing. So what
Okay.
I've added here, because we were working with Coach Chris to, for having a small group of us working with coaching,
Mhm.
right? And having like cameras, recording everything and all. And as we were building our track day plans beforehand, I felt like, okay, we should be sharing those. Because if like, okay, Michael is working on trail breaking, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to be working on that too. So let's cross notes. How are you going to be
Yeah.
approaching that? Let's see. So what I did was to allow from my track
And
day
set the
plan.
target.
And I set well, that was the previous, right? That was my current best lap, right? So I could like share only with a few riders a link to my plan. Because it's like,
Okay.
I don't want everybody just to go in there
Right.
and get in
Okay.
there. So that's how I'm sharing right now. It's a very specific, okay, here's a link to my thing so that you can see it. The next step that I'm taking is to have us like follow each other to the site. So if we paired up, then yeah, you can see what track days I'm gonna go to, what are my plans for each one of them,
Yeah.
and then we can have that discussion, that buddy discussion in a site that is a private site, so it's not like out in the wild and stuff
That'd be
like
cool.
that.
Yeah.
Really cool.
That's where it's going.
It'd be
now.
cool if it could link you up with, if you said I'm working on trail breaking and body position for my next ride.
Right.
It would say user 12 is doing the same thing. Would you like to?
Yeah,
send
exactly.
That'd be really
Exactly.
cool.
Maybe look
Yeah.
into like coaching possibilities.
And then a coach could look at that and say, hey guys, you want a lesson or whatever? Like,
Yeah, I'll be
yeah,
there.
it's
Let's work.
Yeah. So, yeah, to get that feedback and be able to share is tremendous. Get the alternate feedback. So
Right.
that's good stuff. It's like every time I look at the site, there's new stuff I haven't seen before. I'm like, that's
Yeah.
cool. I wonder what that does.
Oh, that one. Let me show you that because that's something new. I haven't talked much about it yet, but it's this thing here. Look, because that's another metric that I use that I've been keeping tabs. So as long as you log
Okay.
the how many miles you rode at the tracks, this is a breakdown. Like how many track days I've done at each track
Yeah.
and how many miles I rode.
So
at
these
each
are the
one.
miles you've specifically entered for the track. It's not saying you've ridden Houston 2.4. It's not calculating the miles from the length of the track and the number of.
No,
Well, I guess
I've
we're not
entered.
tracking how many laps we
Yeah,
actually
no,
did,
I've
so-
entered from the data loggers.
Yeah.
I know like how
Yeah.
many miles. Or actually, no, not even from the data loggers. This is something that I've done from my very first
The
track day.
mileage.
At the
Starting mileage
it started the day, started like this, ended
Yeah.
like this. I know those are track miles, and I just enter it there because then I can see, oh wow, yeah, I rode a lot at MSRH, followed really close by Coda, and yeah, those are the two
Yeah.
tracks I probably ride the best on because that's where I have more experience.
That can be a part of your checklist, write down my odometer.
Yeah.
for the-
Yeah,
And it's,
that's a good point because
yeah.
that's something
Yeah.
I forget to do and then it's too late.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and this is, I mean, I've been doing from my very first track day, so it's like I don't even need on the checklist anymore because I just do it's automatic.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, as I'm like shutting things off, before I load the bike on the car, I go there and I snap a photo
Mhm.
of the
Yeah.
panel, of the dash. Right.
So we don't know how long Speed Sports is. 0 miles.
I haven't added because that one's gonna be tricky. Because that one, they have two tracks.
Oh.
That day I
yeah.
rode both.
Yeah.
If I had the camera running on both times all the time, then I could get it from the camera. But I didn't have. Like
Oh,
the first couple of
Yeah, yeah.
laps out, I'm like,
You got to finish the lap without fouling a spark plug to get the.
exactly. So I'm like, on that one, I'm not sure. Like for the minis, I'm not sure how I'm gonna track that. And I like keeping track of mileage so that I know how many miles have I put on these tires,
Yeah.
how many miles have I ridden on this oil and stuff like that. Otherwise,
Yeah.
I mean, time flies by. If you don't keep track of that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So lots of times people ask me, so how long does a tire last for you at the track? I have to go look at my logs because
Yeah.
it's like I don't know, I've done maybe 4 track days on this set, and then I go look at my logs. No, I've done actually 12. Right, it's way more than my mind tells me. And then when I look at the mile, it's like, oh yeah, I rode like maybe 1,100 miles on a tire.
Yeah, and you drain your oil and it looks like liquid asphalt.
Yes.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Like 86 hours, but then you know how much you can get out of your tires and how many you need and budget. You
Yep.
have a really clear idea.
Exactly.
I like that a lot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because that's the point that I've been sharing also with the guys. When I did my first track day, I had no idea how much that was going to cost other than the track day fee.
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah.
Since I figured I like this, I want to do more. So from every single track day, I created this Excel spreadsheet and I started like writing down
Yep.
this. At the end of the year, it's like, okay, this is how much it's going to cost me for the next year. Now I know,
Mhm.
and I was able to do twice as many, even more than twice as many
Yeah.
track days for about the same budget because I found ways to optimize everything
Yeah.
that I was doing. Right?
Yeah.
That's really cool.
That all
On
helps.
tires, you could probably team up people and buy them maybe bulk and see, hey guys, I'm buying.
Yeah.
You can do that. You can buy in
Yeah.
bulk. You can get to know people like Chris. Chris is a racer. Sometimes, like the set
The
that I'm running,
takeoffs, yeah.
I got his takeoffs. He had
Yeah.
like 1 or 2 race practice sessions. The tires are pretty much new.
Yeah.
Would it be hard to add a little like mini forum on there?
So what I want to do, because farms, they exist already. There's plenty of them out there. What the farms have, they lack this idea of what we do. They know nothing about track. They know nothing about tires and mileage and stuff. I want to do something a little smarter.
Okay.
In the sense that, like for instance, I go out to the track, I come back, I have my debrief, I add the session information, I have a link. As I'm reviewing my video, whenever I run into these guys, I say, okay, oh, I just saw Michael. I put a timestamp on it, and I'm gonna tag him. So
That's
he's
really
gonna
good.
see his
Okay.
video.
Yeah. So we
James,
can-
the same thing.
Yeah.
So they can go.
You can actually see yourself.
Yeah,
That's really
exactly,
where it's at, right?
exactly.
Yes,
Yeah.
and then there I want to put like a comment session and then have a threaded discussion there. So it's a
Okay.
focused discussion on that and not just like, oh, I was thinking about eating whatever for breakfast. No,
Mhm.
it's very specific to that. Because another thing that I don't like about regular forums is that sometimes I post questions out there and then man, you get like a million responses,
Yeah,
and only a very small fraction of it is actually relevant.
yeah, but you don't know which, because you
Right.
don't know these people.
Yes. So sometimes I post like some of my footage on like Facebook closed groups, and people give me their critique. Some are pretty good, some are
Yeah.
like, whatever. But then going back and finding that later, it's close to impossible. So
Yeah.
what I had been doing was to save a link to the post in my offline thing, take snapshots of the things that I want to remember that people said that I'm like, this is
Yeah.
good feedback. This is
Yeah.
gold. And then I save that. For this,
Yes.
what I want to do is slightly different. So I have my video, I have people giving me critique, and then I'm reading through it, and it's like, this is really good. I want to highlight that. I want to highlight that. I want to highlight that. And then I want to say, only show me the highlighted stuff. Everything else is still there if I want to see it, if I want to see context, but the highlighted stuff, that's the meat. That's what I want to see. So you see
Yeah.
why I said
Yeah, I
not
like it.
forum, but
I
more
like it.
focused discussion.
It's a very like more closed group,
Yes.
like-minded kind of thing,
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
deeper
Yeah.
relationship. I feel like is what you're
Exactly.
building.
That's what I'm looking for.
Okay.
Exactly. Because another thing that I do, like as I first started, I had no idea how to read my tires.
Mhm.
It's like, they're there.
Yeah.
I didn't crash. They look good to me. Right? But then I started this thing of I always take photos of my tires at the end of a track day. Always, from all angles.
Mhm.
Because then I send it over to my friends who actually can read the tire and say, dude, you need more air, less air. And then from that, I started like having these online conversations. People were giving me tips, and then I save all that. Because next time I go out to the track, it's like, okay, it looked like that. People told me 2 more pounds of air on the front tire. Let me try that. Let me see what the tire looks like. Oh, it cleaned up. Now all that junk that was there, it's clean.
yeah.
Is that part of your maybe like end of track checklist? Tire pressure? Is that in there?
Tire pressure, I
pressure,
used
tire
to, I
pressure.
used to check at the
Uh-huh.
beginning of the day and at the end.
Uh-huh.
Now I'm checking every session.
Okay.
So before I go out, I check.
Mm-hmm.
When I come back, I check.
Yeah.
Right,
You
to
watch
see
street
how it
racers, they do it
varies.
for every race. It's, I guess, it just the temperature or whatever, the heat
Yes.
of the tires can change. You could be cool, you made a beginner kind of checklist, hey,
Yes.
first
Mhm.
2 or 3 times at the track, just do this.
This is what I should be looking at.
That would be
Yeah.
helpful for someone like me
Yeah.
who's never been, but
Yeah.
I would love to get to this point. I mean, I like all this stuff. It's really cool.
Cool, sweet man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I mean, whenever you sign up for first track day, any questions you have, just ask us. 'Cause
I
we've
did
all
that. I'm
been
on the
there.
Patreon. I'm on the Patreon.
Oh,
So I
excellent.
joined the Facebook group,
Appreciate
so.
that. Yeah, because
But-
this is the thing about this group. This is why I started this group, because there are other groups that they get together at bars and pubs to talk bike stuff. They end up not talking bike stuff. They're just drinking
Yeah.
beer and talking whatever.
Mhm.
I said I want something more focused. I
Mhm.
want to improve my riding,
Yeah.
and I want to build a community of people that I actually trust riding around. Because there are riders out there that I don't feel safe riding around them.
I found that out the first bike meet I went to. I was
Right?
like, holy
Yeah.
shit.
Like, man, that's
You are not next to me, bro.
I'll see y'all later.
yeah, that's scary. With these guys,
Yeah.
man, we have a blast,
Mhm.
right? We're all looking out for each other,
Yeah.
giving each other tips. Awesome. Cool. Thank you so much for sharing that, Michael. That was
Thank
great.
you for everybody being here and
Absolutely. Yeah, I took some notes and I have stuff recorded because you guys gave me some pretty good ideas.